I'm McKinney Smith. After going through a divorce, my sister passing away, experiencing narcissistic abuse, and some significant health scares, I realized through sharing my story that I wasn't alone in my suffering. Suffering, subjective distress generated by the experience of being out of balance. In a deep dive to holistically heal mind, body, and soul is where I discovered peace, clarity, and connection. It is impossible to be truly wise without some real-life hardship, and we cannot develop post-traumatic wisdom without making it through, and most importantly, through it together. Social connection builds resilience, and resilience helps create post-traumatic wisdom, and that wisdom leads to hope. Hope for you and others witnessing and participating in your healing, and hope for your community. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. Thank you for joining us on the Heal Her podcast, HEAL. Honor, elevate, and love her podcast, formerly known as the Walk in My Stilettos podcast, the top 1.5% most popular show globally, where we have conversations with extraordinary women on their journey toward wholeness and harmony. And since you're already here, you may as well subscribe. As a certified mindset coach guiding women towards peace, clarity, and connection within, supporting the direction of the system toward wholeness, my goal here is to help you thrive. Earlene Camielle is a producer, TV host, speaker, and purpose coach. She assists faith-driven women with discovering and creating a lifestyle of purpose by using her own experience of playing it safe to intentionally now pursuing a purpose-filled life in media and on stages daily. Earlene guides her audience to a more rewarding and fulfilling life of purpose because she knows what it feels like to endure abuse, neglect, rejection, abandonment, and to wake up empty every day, just going through the motions and routines of life. But she also knows the beauty of freedom and joy and turning all of that pain and past traumas into great achievements and your life's greatest work, which becomes your legacy. So please welcome to the show, Earlene Camielle.
Hi, such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for saying yes and agreeing to come on and share your healing journey with us.
Of course. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I already feel connected to you, connected to your audience. And of course, I'm hailing all the way from the Bahamas. So I hope you'll get all
beautiful
the sunshine.
Bahamas.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.
Sunshine from here
I'm
today.
hoping that the sun is shining very heavy over there today because we've been having rain for the past how many days?
It's been off and on here too, but I'm sure it's still very warm here though, compared to what is the weather like there? What are which degrees are you?
So we are in the Celsius and it is 23. Yeah, 23 degrees.
Okay.
Not too bad.
Okay, not too bad.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Yes. So you and I first connected. You were here in Canada for a conference, and you were speaking at the conference. I was speaking on a panel at the conference. And like we were saying before we got on the recording, sometimes we connect with people and you never know where it's going to go. And I don't know what the word is, but I used to be very particular about even how many people I followed on Instagram. And then I realized, I love to connect with like-minded people. I love to connect with people that inspire me, people that I can learn from. So there may be some people that I even know that I don't follow on Instagram. To me, it's really about what feeds my spirit. And I connected with you on Instagram and I knew that there was a story there. And I'm excited to jump in for you to share more about your journey, but just to give the listeners a little bit of a backstory of how we connected.
Wow. That even blesses me because it's just confirmation of so many things that, has already been released and spoken over me. So you have been the gateway to, just what God is doing next in my life. So thank you.
I am honored and thank you. And I always say to people when, like, when they talk about whether it be an opportunity or them being on the show, anything like that, like I am just a vessel. Even when it comes to sometimes the words that I say, I'm like, I'm just the messenger. It's not me. I'm allowing God to use me. And in the process, it's been a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
Not only getting to know the people that I've had on the show on a deeper level, but just it's been cathartic. It's been healing for myself, the guests, the listeners. So I'm just grateful for all these conversations that I get to have because they have been a true blessing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you're blessing us too. So, hey, ditto.
Okay, so before we get to where you are presently, let's get into where things began. Let's get, to the very beginning. And I would love to know, before culture or society, or maybe even your parents or guardians, tried to shape who you were. I would love to know what you wanted to be as a little girl, because I feel like, children's imaginations are, so free. And before the world starts to place the limitations. So I would love to know what you wanted to be as a little girl and, what your aspirations were and what you were like as a teenager.
Oh, wow. So as a little girl, I actually first wanted to be like a counselor, like a psychologist to help children, to help children. And then that turned into wanting to be a vet to help pets. So I always had this desire to help and save. Yeah. And then as a teenager, I actually was not the happiest teenager because by that time I had already experienced abuse by the hands of a cousin, and then was experiencing neglect in my home, and, a lot of other stuff. So unfortunately, I wasn't the happiest teenager. However, I had beautiful friends who had really supportive homes. So I still was able to enjoy life outside of my home. Yeah.
And I love that although you've had, rough, I guess, family experiences, you found a safe space and community in friends outside of that so that you weren't jaded by the world. Sometimes people experience things in their childhood and it's almost like it kind of becomes like a blockage where they can't have healthy relationships outside of that. They're unable to heal from that.
Right.
So having experienced abuse and neglect as a child, where now do you feel safest expressing your emotions?
Oh, wow. I express them everywhere because I've gotten freedom from my story. And I believe now that because I was able to heal and achieve that level of freedom, I tell everyone because I want people to understand that even though your life looks this way, it can be this way. Yeah. And I want, people to know that they're not alone with what they're going through. And also that we don't always look like what we've been through. So, I share them whenever I have the opportunity.
And I love that you spoke to, not necessarily looking like what we've been through. I mean, you look beautiful, vibrant,
thank you,
happy. So I guess for those that are listening, because I know that, okay, so you and I have shared our story on multiple platforms. We're comfortable with sharing our story. We're comfortable with being vulnerable and transparent about our experiences because we've seen the transformation and the rewards that come from that, the blessings that come from that. Right. But there are many people that struggle with sharing their story, with being as open. So what advice would you give to a woman that's listening right now that is afraid to share her story?
The first thing I would say is to figure out where you feel safe and then go to that safe space, that safe person, and that's where you share it first. Yeah, that would be because you're going there and you're going to be able to release your voice, let your voice be heard. And prayerfully, that other person will be able to receive that information and speak things over you and into you that you need to hear at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I will say also that we don't realize that our Heavenly Father is always listening. He's always there. I would
Mm-hmm.
even say it out loud to him.
Yeah.
Even though he knew that it happened to you, say it out loud to him. He can give you comfort and peace that nobody else can. And
Mm-hmm.
say it to yourself too. Say it to yourself and and then when you release it and say it to yourself, you're able to face it. And then you're able to speak back over yourself to say, this should not have happened. I'm sorry that this happened to you. I know during my healing journey, relating to the sexual abuse, that's my journey started in my mid-20s. I was able to write a letter to my young self. And at the time I called her Camille because my middle name is actually Camille. So Earlene Camielle, right. Yeah. I was able to write a letter to Camille, and I didn't give it to anybody. I just wrote it to my, I didn't share it with anyone. I wrote it to myself, and then I burned it afterwards. But I at least released everything, and I was able to tell myself the type of environment I deserved, the type of support I deserved, and say sorry, but still it's okay. This is the type of life you're building. You're now an adult. Nobody can ever touch you and hurt you that way. So yes. So go to a safe space, speak to your Heavenly Father, and then you try to face it on your own and start to speak to yourself on your own.
You made some great points there. Some things that I want to highlight for anyone who's listening in case they missed it. One, where you said to share it with someone where you feel safe, in a safe space. I think that's extremely important because oftentimes, someone is going through something and they just need to let it out. And I've seen people use, Facebook or social media as a personal diary where they write it all. Where they kind of overshare, but then they end up being more hurt because it's not necessarily a safe space. There's people with their thoughts and opinions and beliefs or unhealthy ways of communicating that may say something to make that worse. So I think it's important to, like you said, share it where you feel safe first. And then, of course, give it to God always.
Yeah. He's
but
listening.
Always listening. But what you said about writing it down, I think that we underestimate the importance and the significance of just that expression, that releasing. Nobody else needs to see it. Nobody else needs to even know that it exists. You burned yours. It's just getting it out. You're expressing what's inside, because when we suppress our emotions and we tuck everything down, then that's how we end up with the depression and all those other things. And our body is listening to everything going on in the mind. And all of that toxicity and negativity and the things that we're holding on to starts to affect our health. And then we wonder, why we're coming down with these diseases and sicknesses, because it's a body that's in dis-ease. It hasn't been able to release and process the emotions. It's suppressed emotions. So I love, the idea of journaling it and writing it down if they don't feel safe sharing it publicly.
Right. And it's like you're validating the fact that this happened to you. Like nobody else has to do that for you. You know that it happened. This is your truth, and stand in your truth. I will say that I was fortunate in the way that, it's weird to use the word fortunate, but I still felt like I was fortunate because my twin brother, I was 5 years old. It is a pretty sad story, but thankfully, I've gotten freedom from it. My twin brother was actually in the room, and he tried to stop the older cousin that was doing this. So he was able, when I went through my healing journey, he was able to confirm that this did happen to you.
Wow.
This did happen to you. Again, it's a sad story, but I always try to find the positive, and someone else was able to validate that for me as well. Without the public knowing, without anybody else knowing, that was something between me and him.
Right. And I'm sorry that you even had to experience that. But like you said, you are fortunate where you had another person to validate your experiences, because
Mm-hmm.
I know many people that have been sexually abused, and because the abuser denies the claims and then society wants to, protect abusers and there's further victim blame, it's almost like they start to question, did this really happen? Is it in my head? Was it just me?
Yeah.
So, you were able to have that confirmation and that
Mm-hmm.
validation that your
Mm-hmm.
experience was very real.
Did happen. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. What are some, what are some ways that society or culture or even the environment that you were raised in shape your identity?
In most ways, my immediate environment told me what not to do. I'm a mother, and so I was able to learn very early on, I'm not going to do with my children, but I will do this with my children. So my
Mhm.
immediate environment, that's the lessons that I got from that. But again, I had beautiful friends with great families, and they took me in. They took such good care of me. So I was able to watch, like, my first best friend, her mother, and the way that she was so nurturing and she was so sweet. And she created this, like, the best environment for them. And then she took me in, even as simple as drives for ice cream, or just the little things she did around the house for them, and just building them up constantly. So she actually, and I've told her thank you several times
Mhm.
throughout, like, my lifetime. Like, you don't realize what you did to me, but did for me, but this is what you did for me. Like, my children are better because of you. So I didn't realize it at the time because I was very young, but I clearly was in their homes, and I was studying and
Mhm.
watching how they were moving and how they were interacting, because I knew the examples that I had at home
Mhm.
wasn't like I didn't understand it fully, but I knew that this isn't right.
Right.
Something should be different. Right.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you were blessed with a alternate representation of what
Yes.
family looks
Exposure.
like,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes
Yes.
those of us that were raised in unhealthy environments, that's all we know, right? So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
continue throughout our life and in our early relationships being that way because we quote unquote think it's normal. But there's so many things that, whether it be, in different cultures or countries that are considered normal, that are either traumatic or unhealthy or toxic, but you had a healthy example of
Hmm.
what family looks like. Something, that's why they say representation is important, because if you didn't
Yeah.
have that, then you wouldn't know the difference,
That
right?
there was something different. Right, right,
Hmm.
right. I released a blog, I think in like 2019, and the name of it was I Was Always Connected. I believe that that was God's way of having his hand on me,
Hmm.
ensuring that I still had people around me to protect me, because the level of freedom I had at my age, like I could have come and go if I wanted to. I didn't have to go to school. Like, felt like nobody cared.
Hmm.
There were so many things I could have gotten involved in that I did not, because of these other healthy environments. So I
Right.
believe that was God's way of protecting me and making sure that I had somewhere safe to go. And yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I love that for you, and I love that you had that. And I'm someone who truly believes like family isn't always necessarily, your blood relatives. And there are many of us that have found connection and community and created families that have been much healthier for us
Yeah.
outside of our blood relatives.
Hmm.
So, I guess, what lessons have you learned about having a healthy relationship with yourself?
With myself,
Hmm.
the first thing that came to mind was a time, just always making the time to sit with myself, to hear my heart, to just get fully engulfed in identity and legacy and like what I want for my children and my grandchildren. So that time with self is the first thing, that
Hmm.
came to mind.
Wow, that's big. And the reason why I say that's big is over the years between the podcast or people that I've coached or just conversations that I've had, it's like there is not enough people that spend enough time alone getting to know themselves. Society, especially, in this day and age with cell phones and social media, everyone is so engulfed in other people's lives, what other people are doing, how they're living, how they're feeling, and not paying enough attention to themselves. And if we all took the time to get to know ourselves the way that we get to know other people, the world would actually be a much better place, because we wouldn't be trying to compare ourselves. We would know our own values. We would know our purpose. We would know, what's important to us, and not be trying to compare, to other people. And I feel like when you know who you are, whose you are, when you know what you want for yourself, your desires that you have for your life, your vision that you have for your family, those things are so important, because when we don't know, we get whatever life gives us, right? There's no instruction, no rule book, no nothing that we've put out there. We're not really asking God for anything when we haven't taken the time to get to know ourselves and what we want, that vision for our life.
Those are the markers. Those are the whys. So even if life is going crazy, if you have those markers, if you have that foundation, you pull it back in and the peace returns, the joy returns, all those things return. And then you find that balance. You can breathe and be refueled.
Yes.
Start again, and when I say start again, I mean, like, pick back up where you left off.
Yeah.
But I a purpose coach, as you mentioned, and the first tier of connecting to purpose is spending time with self, spending time with self, getting to know self. And then, of course, that leads us to who our maker is. And when you connect with the next step, connecting with your maker, then he reveals who you really are.
Yeah.
And as you connect with identity, it points you directly to purpose.
Yeah.
So spending time with self is so, so, so important.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. Okay, so give us the, in Canada, we call it Coles Notes. I think Americans told me, what was the name they used? Well, now I can't remember, but I guess the summary of how you got to where you are today. Tell us your story.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, childhood trauma, actually rejection from in my home, and ending up pregnant at 19, but being the best mother that I could be. Beautiful mother, and beautiful relationship. So I still did well, even though that happened. Ended up getting married, of course, young, and having more children young, and life seemed to be okay. And then a divorce happened. And also I lost a very close family member from suicide. Wow. So those two things happened simultaneously, right? And then life goes haywire. And the balanced person I was feeling so much pain, which felt like whatever I would have been going through as a child. So I kind of reverted back to whatever my survivor instincts were. And that was to shut down, not feel, and then live my best life. So, and that was socially. Yeah. So I started to live my best life socially. Of course, still was responsible as far as working and taking care of the bills, but I wasn't feeling, I wasn't dealing, and I disconnected from my core. Because if you are not allowing yourself to feel love, feel emotions, connect, you're not being yourself. Right. So I disconnected from my core, but still was having a blast. And I feel like God let me be. He let me be for about 5 years. And then he was like, no, enough is enough. Come. And he does that in different ways. I do believe it happened for me this way. I went out one evening and ended up in a car accident on my way home.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yes. Like I said, it happens for different people in different ways. But I do, yeah. I know that's questionable what I just said, but that's what's in my heart. So I'm going to release what is in my heart. And that slowed me down. That gave me a reality check. It affected my finances because it affected my job, cracked ribs, concussion, all
Wow.
that stuff. It was pretty bad. In fact, the police had told my brother that I was lucky to survive because it was a really bad accident. They've seen accidents that weren't that bad and people did not survive.
Wow.
So then God takes me on this journey of, again, slowing me down, making me need a little bit more financially and all these different kind of things. And I started to check myself. Like socially, that's not working anymore. Everything is coming up to the surface. And then I'm realizing, okay, I need to be restored. Like, I don't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I feel unfulfilled. I feel like there's more. I feel like I'm out of whack because, again, I wasn't connected to my core. So I've said a prayer like a few months later. Father, restore me back to the person that I was before the world touched me in any way. And that would have been 0 to 5 years, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because I recognized I wasn't me. I wasn't connected to my core. So I submitted sincerely to him. And that started a beautiful journey of becoming more self-aware of how all of the things in the past, the abuse, the divorce, all those things affected how I was showing up in my life at that time, how I was responding to people in business and at work, in personal relationships, all those things. And yeah, that's how it all started. And then again, spending time with myself, spending time with him, and discovering my gifts. He actually connected me to a production where I got the lead role in a play. This
Nice.
was the lead role was a lady. She was married, beautiful. Beautiful story. She was married. She had like the picture perfect life, but she could not have a child. So I was disconnected from my emotions. So he used this character that I had to connect with. She was a loving wife, but again, she was mourning and grieving because she could not give birth. Each time she would have this child, she would, lose the baby. So God uses anything to connect us to what he wants to connect us to. So I was connecting back to my emotions. I was crying again. I went like 5 years without shedding a tear.
Wow.
A human? Like,
wow.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Right? So I connected with the gift of acting. And then as I started to, again, spend time with myself, spend time with him, then other gifts started emerging and positive desires started emerging. And then I started connecting the dots of these natural behaviors that I carried all my life that were connected to purpose, like speaking over people, building them up, and connecting in conversation. Like we connected well even before we started, right?
Yeah.
And my compassion for people. And as I connected with those natural gifts, became aware of those natural behaviors and paid attention to the positive desires, the healing journey continued through self-awareness, through making decisions on being better once I became aware of things. And then this deeper process of healing and connecting, and it just continued to unfold. And then I became ready to share my story. And that's when things took off, finding the freedom in my process, in my journey, and then purpose unfolded.
Wow.
That was a lot. I'm sorry.
No. Don't apologize at all. I'm just thinking what I have so many questions about what you said. So I'm like, okay, where do I want to start? Like, I want to unpack some of that. I guess I'll start with you. Okay. So you became a mother at 19 and I have so many questions. I mean,
I know I said a lot. Even I was confusing myself. I'm like, Earlene, you're getting off track.
no, I was following along. I was totally following along. I have so many questions. It's like I probably should have been writing them down as you were talking because my brain now was like, okay, which one to ask first? And then it's going all over the place. Okay. So you became a mom at 19. As a young mom, and then, sorry, how many children do you have? Oh.
Uh-oh. Okay, I can hear you now. We just froze. I can hear you now.
Froze for a second.
You were going to say.
Yeah. How many children do you have?
Became a young. So I had my oldest. I have 3 twins.
Okay. Oh, wow.
After the oldest, I had twins, and I'm a twin.
Wow.
So I have three adult children, actually.
Okay.
3 adult children. They're grown.
I get it. I've got adult children as well. 3 as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wow. We have so much in common.
Yes. And I had my first child at 17.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
this is
I
why
guess
we connected.
Yes.
Well. This is why God has sent you to me. Wow. That's crazy.
Yes. Yeah, we have a lot in common. So I guess I was going to ask, like, as a young mom, how did motherhood change you?
Oh, wow. It gave me so much fulfillment. I remember before my daughter was born, I remember waking up and looking out of the window and just always feeling empty because I didn't have good support. I didn't have love. I remember saying, if your mother doesn't love you, no one will love you. And I went through my teenage years feeling that way.
Wow.
So I know that the world looked at me. They probably scorned me, because I was a teenager and I got married after I had her. But it felt beautiful to me. I was ready. I embraced it. And her name is Destin. So I believe she was destined to be.
I love it. Love it. Beautiful. So I guess because our parents and our caregivers are often our loudest fans or critics, if you grew up where you felt neglect, where did you receive your praise from?
Nowhere.
Wow.
Nowhere. My twin brother always was supportive of me. I knew that he went to a friend's house. So I kind of like left him at home. He probably felt like I abandoned him. But in those spaces, I was cared for, but I wasn't spoken over or directly poured into. So I did not get that. And I do think that's why I looked for it elsewhere in romantic relationships.
Yeah, that would have been my next question. How are you compensating for what you didn't get while growing up?
Yeah, then that's probably the reason why I connected with that person, the father of my first child. And he was about 4 years older than me. So I would have been 18 and he was probably about 23. Is that? Yeah. But that ended up being an abusive relationship. So when she was about 3 months, I had to leave. I had to go to the courts, and we call it here bound the person over the peace. Yeah. It was a very abusive relationship. So
wow. I'm sorry you had to experience that. Like I know the effects that those things can have on anyone, like moving forward in their life. But you have managed to, build a business and raise beautiful children and do all of those things. Like, what habits would you say you are most proud of that led to the positive changes in your life?
That's a very good question. Which habits? I think the ability to, no matter what's going on, to continue to move forward. Even if I am feeling bad about guilt, like in any way, just any bad feelings. And I just kept moving. So that's the first thing that came to mind just now.
Okay. I guess before we go to the final segment of the show, I'd love if you could tell the listeners where they could stay connected with you to learn more from you and about you.
Mm-hmm. Of course, I would love to connect with your listeners. They can actually jump onto my website, Earlene, www. Let me say that over. I'd love to connect with your listeners. They can actually follow me on all of the social media sites at Earlene Camielle. Should I spell it or?
Yep, sure.
Okay. At Earlene Camielle, EarleneCamielle. Also on LinkedIn, and then also my website, www.earlenecamielle.com. I am a purpose coach, and I do have a 12-week program where I assist people. I guide them through connecting, securing, and starting a life of purpose. And I would love to extend a 15% discount to your listeners, and they can redeem that on the website, www.earlenecamielle.com/free gift. And I would love to, work with the woman that is searching for ways to live a more meaningful and purpose-filled life, or the woman that is moving around and feeling empty and unfulfilled, and even the woman that is feeling like there's something bigger and greater out there for her.
I
would love that opportunity.
I will definitely have all of the links to your website and your social in the detailed section of the episode, so they can just click and connect directly. They don't have to search too far.
Right. Thank you. Great.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So the final segment of the show is kind of like a rapid fire. You can answer one word or one sentence. I am a bit of a rebel, so if you feel to break the rules and you need to unpack, you're more than welcome to do so.
One word, one sentence. Let me brace myself. I'm in ready position.
All right. First question. When and where are you the happiest?
With my children.
Love it. Okay. What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? When I feel like I have not been as productive as I should have been, when procrastination takes over.
Okay. What's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received happened in my 20s when I was told that they don't need a reason not to like you. They cannot like the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you look. They can just decide not to like you. So don't focus on that.
I love that. Okay. What's the worst advice you've ever received?
Okay. The worst advice I received was actually from someone who loved me and someone who was mentoring me. I was about to launch a program, and the step that I wanted to take was kind of bigger than what they could see happening. So they discouraged me and told me, no, don't do that. Do this.
What is something that most people value, but you don't?
I'm going to say validation from others. Yeah, I'm validation from others. I think because I've gotten to the point where it's not necessary. Affirming someone is one thing, but kind of looking for validation from others is not advised, in my opinion.
I love that. Okay. Name a book that has changed or greatly impacted your life.
Don't Drop the Mic by T.D. Jakes. Yes.
Love it. Okay. Last but not least, what do you wish women would do more of?
Spend time with themselves and support and speak over the other women in their lives that they know that they can learn and grow from.
I love that. And I think that is so important. I think from young, we've been conditioned and programmed to compete with other women when we can do so much more together, and edifying each other and lifting each other up and giving each other opportunities.
Yes.
It only adds to our blessings.
Yes, definitely. And you're doing that for me today, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Honestly, Earlene, thank you for sharing your story with us, for sharing all of your gems with us. I know this episode is going to be fruitful for those that are listening. And, we definitely have to do a part 2, but just thank you. And I hope that we can stay connected. And if there is any way that I can add value to anything that you are doing, I'd be more than happy to help.
Thank you so much. You have already added a lot of value, and I do look forward to the second episode, because we were challenged today with some technical difficulties, but we pushed through because this connection had to happen, and the words that were released had to happen as well. And I will do the same for you. I'm in the Bahamas, so we're going to get you down here on Journey TV one day. And before that probably happens, we'll connect and do something virtually as well. So I am supporting you and I am cheering for you. You're a beautiful soul. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Earlene, and you too. And I'm excited for what is next for you, what is next for us, and to, all of the healers out there that are listening. We want to hear what resonated with you. We want to hear, what part of Earlene's story touched you. How it may have been similar to yours, or any aha moments that you may have had. Feel free to screenshot this episode, and you can tag Earlene on Instagram at Earlene Camielle. You can tag myself at The Real McKinney Smith. And I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to share this episode with at least 3 friends that need to hear Earlene's story. I am super grateful, and I don't take for granted those of you that tune in each week to help the show rank globally in the top 1.5% most popular shows. And there are over 3 million podcasts out there. And I'm just over here in my little corner of the world, being the introvert inside of my home, recording these amazing conversations. So I just want to thank all of the listeners. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. So let's continue to heal her.